Hello, how are you? Welcome to What's Up with Adam Tilted, a weekly space and science update. I'm really excited about today's show because we are going to talk about Cassini and Saturn. I'm sure I'm not alone when I say that Saturn is one of my favorite planets. But before we get into that, there are some astronomical events of note. On Saturday, there we go. You'll have to excuse me, this is the first time I'm using all of this together, so we'll see how it goes. On Wednesday, at 5:43 p.m. Eastern Time is the full moon. And that on Friday is when it reaches apogee. That means that's when it is furthest away from the Earth in its orbit. Remember, the Earth and the moon, they actually rotate around each other. Okay? So they kind of wobble. But anyway, as the moon does that, it's not in a perfect circle. So sometimes it's closer, sometimes it's further away. And on Friday, it will be at its furthest point from us. So, hi Alfredo. So, it may look a little smaller than normal. And then on Saturday and Sunday, after midnight, there will be a fun pairing of the moon and Saturn, but you'll have to stay up late or get up super early to see that. Okay, let's get into the Cassini Mission. The Cassini Mission is a mission to explore Saturn, the whole Saturn system. We've never had a spacecraft devoted just to Saturn. The couple of spacecraft have done flybys. But, excuse me, but no spacecraft has really spent any time there and done a lot of science. So Cassini is awesome because it's going to have the opportunity to see Saturn over a period of time. And that gives us a lot of information, not only about Saturn, but also some clues about maybe how our solar system formed. Because in a way, Saturn's sort of like a mini solar system, with Saturn being the sun, or the center. Cassini launched. Let's see if I can bring this up to you. Here we go. Cassini launched from Cape Canaveral on October 14th, 1997. So, that was a long time ago. 1997. Cape Canaveral, incidentally, that's the same place where the Apollo missions launched from, where the space shuttles launched from. If you have an opportunity to go visit the Kennedy Space Center down there, it is amazing. I highly recommend you take the time to do that. So Cassini launched in October of 97, and 7 years later, it began to enter the orbit of Saturn. It began to enter the system, so it's still out by the moons, which are quite a distance away, and then in June of 2004, it begins its insertion into orbit around Saturn. Now, Cassini is the first spacecraft to do this. So we learned a lot. And I'm going to just hit on a few highlights in the time that we have. So, first, let's talk about a few things we learned about Saturn itself. Cassini was able to image lightning strikes in Saturn's atmosphere on both the day side and on the night side. And that was a first that had never been done before. Saturn also has an annual 30-day 30-day storm. It came early, so we were able to see it. No, it is a 30-year storm. I had to check that because I knew that was not right. Okay. All right, so hold on, I'm just checking to make sure that I'm still connected because I got a weird message. Okay, good. Still connected. Okay, good. But I don't want the double sound. Okay. Oh, it says something that went wrong. Okay, I'm going to keep on going. Leave me a comment. Hold on. Okay, I think I'm live again, or still. Okay. Back to Cassini. So it took Cassini 7 years. Oh, by the way, all of the media that I'm using, unless I tell you differently, is courtesy of NASA and JPL, the Jet Propulsion Lab. Almost forgot. The Jet Propulsion Laboratories. I recommend you go to their website to check out what they have. They have a lot more information about the Cassini mission, including some interesting graphics and diagrams and things like that. Okay, so the 30-year storm happens every year, and it lasts for 30 years, which is the time that it takes Saturn to orbit the Sun. This came earlier than it normally did. So Cassini was there when it happened, which was a great opportunity for us to do some science. Cassini also was able to image this, which is amazing. This hexagonal jet stream at the North Pole. It imaged that in both infrared and visible light. So you can see there's a lot going on in there. Now this hexagonal shape is actually, it's a very natural formation. It looks very unnatural because we don't normally see this shape in nature. But this can be reproduced here on Earth, this shape of a storm. So that was cool that they were able to image that and see all the detail there, because that helps us understand similar storms here on Earth. The other advantage of being there for so long is that Cassini was able to observe Saturn's seasons. Saturn's seasons are 7 years, and you can see in this image, in the bottom left, that at the beginning of Cassini's mission, Saturn was the rings were more level, more on edge. And then as the mission proceeded and Saturn continued to revolve around, orbit around the sun, Saturn has a tilt just like Earth does. So as it moves around the sun, the tilt changes. So the cool thing in these, if you look, as the images progress, Saturn is kind of tilting back, and we are able to see the rings more face on. Now, obviously, that's better because we can see those rings, and that's one of the primary missions of Cassini. Oh, I wanted to show you this other picture, this amazing image. This one, I believe, is when the Cassini team put out a message for everyone to go out and look up at the night sky and smile. And I believe that Earth is somewhere on the right side of Saturn, bottom, beneath the rings. I'm not exactly sure. But amazing to get this image with the backlighting of the sun. You can really see that very diffuse outer ring, the E ring. Now let's take a look at the rings. The rings are one of Saturn's most prominent features and one of my favorite to look at. Cassini discovered when it got there, this image, by the way, is in radio, and it is an occultation. Earth is passing by behind the rings, and scientists are using that information to to find out about the particles that the rings are composed of. Cassini discovered that the particles range in size from a grain of sand to as large as mountains. And that diffuse outer ring, that E ring, that is way out on the right of this picture, that material comes from one of the moons. That was unexpected. Cassini also studied Titan. Now, Titan is one of the largest moons in the solar system, and it has a hazy atmosphere. You can't see it right now because I'm covering part of it, but you can kind of see. It has a very hazy atmosphere, and that's interesting all on its own because we don't know of any other world in our solar system that has a thick atmosphere like that, except for Venus, but certainly not a moon. So, we knew that from the flyby. What Cassini was able to do with its more advanced instruments was to pierce through that haze layer and see what was underneath. And what we found was amazing. What you're seeing there, those darker parts, those are lakes and rivers and streams. It rains on Titan, but it's not raining water. Those lakes and streams are not made of water. They are made of methane. On Titan, it is so cold that methane, which is a gas on Earth, is a liquid. Excuse me. So Titan has this whole system, just like we do with water, where it rains and fills up the streams, and that fills up the rivers, which drain into the lakes and the seas, which then it evaporates, and the whole cycle repeats itself. Titan has that same system, except with liquid methane, which makes you wonder, is something living in that methane? Don't you think we need to find out? I do. Titan is on the top of the list for places to study next. Now, the moons of Saturn just kept getting more and more amazing. Saturn has countless moons. In fact, every single particle of its ring system is technically a moon. So it's hard to say how many moons Saturn has. But the ones that they're all very different, and they're all very interesting. This is Enceladus. It is a ball of ice, and you can see that very blue color there. That is thin ice. And there is a liquid ocean underneath. Well, how do we know that? There are some clues. First off, we can see the cracks in the surface. That indicates that the ice is moving around. That indicates that there must be some friction, which creates heat, which creates melting, which creates liquid water. And everywhere we have found liquid water on Earth, even in the harshest conditions, everywhere we have found liquid water, we have found life. So it is interesting to think about what could be under that ice at Enceladus. I mentioned earlier that there's a connection between Enceladus and the E-ring. Enceladus has these plumes, geysers, and they are made of water ice, water vapor, and Cassini was not we didn't know this was there, so Cassini did not come prepared to study these plumes, but it was able to fly through them and, collect whatever data it could. And we found that it is water. It is water vapor and water ice particles. And there are some components that are needed for life. So this is another reason to go to Enceladus, because it is a good candidate for another place in our solar system that could have life. Cassini has been in space for 20 years and it's running out of fuel. So we don't want to contaminate any of these amazing worlds that we've found around Saturn with anything from our spacecraft. So we need to make sure that it is disposed of in a controlled way. What the science team has decided to do is to do what's called the grand finale. Cassini will go high up over the pole of Saturn and swoop in. Let's see if I've got an image. I think I do. Yes. It will dive in between Saturn and its innermost ring. That has never been done before. That will be the closest we have ever gotten to Saturn. And we don't know what we're going to find. They plan to have 22 of these orbits before Cassini crashes into the atmosphere of Saturn. And then it will become part of Saturn. It will be collecting data that whole time. It has started this grand finale already. I believe it was last week, and it is scheduled to finish in September. Are there any questions? I want to get to any questions if there are. No questions? Okay. Then I want to show you this quick movie from NASA and JPL that tells you more about the grand finale and what's going to happen.
A lone explorer on a mission to reveal the grandeur of Saturn, its rings and moons. After 20 years in space, NASA's Cassini spacecraft is running out of fuel. And so, to protect moons of Saturn that could have conditions suitable for life, a spectacular end has been planned for this long-lived traveler from Earth. In 2004, following a 7-year journey through the solar system, Cassini arrived at Saturn.
The SOI burn attitude pointing position, light up the rockets.
The spacecraft carried a passenger, the European Huygens probe, the first human-made object to land on a world in the distant outer solar system. For over a decade, Cassini has shared the wonders of Saturn and its family of icy moons, taking us to astounding worlds where methane rivers run to a methane sea, where jets of ice and gas are blasting material into space from a liquid water ocean that might harbor the ingredients for life. And Saturn, a giant world ruled by raging storms and delicate harmonies of gravity. Now, Cassini has one last daring assignment. Cassini's grand finale is a brand new adventure. 22 dives through the space between Saturn and its rings. As it repeatedly braves this unexplored region, Cassini seeks new insights about the origin of the rings and the nature of the planet's interior, closer to Saturn than ever before. On the final orbit, Cassini plunged into Saturn, fighting to keep its antenna pointed at Earth as it transmits its pheromone. In the skies of Saturn, the journey begins, as Cassini becomes part of the planet itself.
Two of me. Great. So I encourage you to go to the NASA JPL website. It's very easy to find. Just do a search. They have a great site devoted to Cassini and the mission and all of the great science that has come so far, as well as updates on what's happening with the grand finale. Thank you so much for joining me. I love Saturn, and I'm so excited about all of the information that we're still sorting through from the Cassini mission. We need to go back. So support space exploration, planetary science, any chance that you get. I am always looking for ideas for show topics. So if you have a question about space or science, please leave it in the comments. And I will see you next week for What's Up with Adam Tilted. Don't forget to look up.